We are on our series on favor. We've had 2 lessons looking at who does God favor. So we're looking at 10 things that the Bible says bring you favor from God. And so today we're on the 10th thing. And that 10th thing that brings you the favor of God is other people's favor. So we're going to be looking at that today.
Okay.
So I was blessed to have the opportunity to go to Super Bowl 50. It was at Levi Stadium, so the first Super Bowl we held there, I got the opportunity to go. It was the Carolina Panthers against the Denver Broncos.
Right.
And I was sitting in the Carolina Panthers section. I'm not a Carolina Panther fan, but I was sitting in the section with all the Carolina Panther fans.
Yeah.
So I was sitting next to this couple, and they said they were season ticket holders. They go to every game. They put their name in the lottery, and so they won tickets to the Super Bowl.
For the
So
Panthers?
For the Panthers.
They're Panthers fans.
Yeah, they were Panthers fans. So they were at the Super Bowl. So this was like the biggest, their dream.
Right,
Getting to go to the Super Bowl. Their team made it to the Super Bowl. They get to go see their team make it.
Right.
So I was talking to them a little bit.
It's big.
And in the second quarter, the guy went down to get some alcohol and some drinks. And so Carolina was doing bad. They were getting beat. But then they scored a touchdown while he was gone. And I was like, oh, he missed it. So he came back up. And I said, oh, you missed it. They scored a touchdown. He said, oh, I know. I saw it on the TV.
TV's everywhere.
And I was expecting him to be excited. And he said, oh, he said they scored it while I was gone. I must be bad luck. I was like, oh, I guess, yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Right.
And so he gave his wife the food. And then he said a few words to her. And then he left again. I was like, man, he's going to miss the game. Then halftime came. Beyonce, Bruno Mars performed. It was a big spectacle. He was still gone.
He was still gone?
Yeah, third quarter came. And so I asked his wife, I said, is he coming back? She said, he better not. I was like, why? She said, he's bad luck.
He meant it for real?
And so at the end of the third quarter, she left. And so I imagine she went to go be with him. And so they never came back.
What?
So I guess he decided he was going to help Carolina, he was going to stay out the whole game. Because so I guess he believed strongly that, he could bring luck or bad luck
Right.
or favor or curses to Carolina just by his presence. So we're going to kind of look, and so that's kind of like a sports folklore type of thing.
Yeah.
But they pay so much money
They
for
paid, so much
just
money.
to walk out and leave like that.
So,
Yeah,
they watched it, but they watched it from,
I could see if it was like a regular game,
yeah.
but a Super Bowl game, it's
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one
So,
lifetime
wow.
type thing.
Yeah, so
Moments.
they
Yeah,
strongly believed it.
Wow. They hardcore fans. Only hardcore fans think like that.
Yeah,
Very hardcore fans.
very hardcore.
Yeah.
Man.
So what we're going to look at is there any type of biblical truth to that you could bring good luck or bad luck or blessings or cursing just from your presence
Or absence.
or absence? Yeah, from your absence or your presence. So we're going to take a look at that in this study. So we'll start off looking at the story of Abraham. Or not the story of Abraham. God speaking to Abraham in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3. Now the Lord said to Abraham, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the ones who curses you I will curse. In you all the families in the earth will be blessed. So we know that favor is blessing. God didn't say that Abraham will be blessed. God said that Abraham will be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So favor makes you a blessing to other people, along with being blessed.
So just by merely having favor, you automatically are rubbing that off onto other people.
You could be.
Could be, right?
Yeah. So you
just by your mere presence, just by you having favor from God.
Well, it may not just be your presence, but yeah, you might want to get around people with favor. But yeah, so we're going to look at what it is that can attract you the favor that other people have, or the favor from God when other people have it. Let's see. So would you rather receive a blessing or be a blessing?
Be a blessing.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a blessing.
Be a blessing, right?
Yeah.
So God told Abram that He will bless those who bless you. So when I first read that verse or studied it, I thought that it was saying that whoever Abraham blesses, God will bless them too.
Right, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought it said. But then I read it again. It said, He says, I will bless those who bless you.
All those who bless you.
Yeah. So God will bless those who bless Abram. So those who show favor and goodwill towards Abram, God will bless.
What was the other question? Those who
Abraham blesses.
Okay.
So it's those who bless Abram,
Right.
God will bless.
And bless him how though?
In any way.
In any way?
Apparently.
Okay.
So those who bless Abram, God will bless them. So do you think people would treat you differently if they knew if they knew that blessing you would bring them favor?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They'll have you spend the night. They'll stay a week at their house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure will.
So, but he also says God will curse those who curse Abram.
Right.
Right.
So that's big. So we've talked, you think about curses, witches putting on curses and things like that. But this is a curse from God.
But now I thought God didn't curse. Is he something about putting on a curse, or like saying bad words cursing?
No, not saying bad words.
Okay.
But he will basically
Do a bad thing?
bad to those who do bad to
Abram.
Abram. So not cursing like bad word.
Okay. Curse him in the sense of doing him wrong.
Doing wrong, right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's huge. So God has said He's going to do you wrong.
Right.
So that would be a disaster in your life.
So he's protected even more.
Right.
Blessed and protected because he was faithful.
Yeah. He was faithful, exactly, and his faithfulness was counted as righteousness. That's what we studied before. So, Abram could cause, or the way people treated Abram could cause them to either be blessed or cursed from God. So this is basically part 3 of who does God favor. So now I'm going to review part 2 that we discussed at the last time we met. Favor means to give approval, support, or liking for someone or something. Favor is to provide with advantages. Favor is to show special privileges. We discussed that everyone doesn't have the same amount of favor. Your thoughts, actions, and behavior determine whether or not you receive favor from God. We looked at 2 things that bring you favor.
Wait, thoughts, actions, and what?
And behavior determine whether or not you receive favor from God. Your thoughts, actions, and behavior. And we looked at 2 things that bring you favor from God. Those 2 things are wisdom And the second was doing good deeds. We saw that wisdom is the application of knowledge. A fool could have knowledge but not know how to apply it correctly. We saw that wisdom is the ability to see differences and then to respond correctly to those differences. So you can see the difference between two situations, between two people, between two attitudes, between two choices. You can see the differences and then you respond correctly to those differences that you notice. That's wisdom. 3 ways to get wisdom are to pray for it, fearing God, and studying the Bible. We saw that if you sow good deeds, you'll reap good from God. You may not reap in the same place or through the same people into which you sowed, though. So you're going to sow, if you sow good, you're going to get back good, but it may not be from that same person.
Yeah.
You know, they may not even appreciate it. The Bible tells us that giving to the poor is like giving a loan to God. So God owes you. So if you give to the poor, now God owes you.
Did you guys talk about that on Sunday as well?
I think so. Yeah, it talked about giving to the poor.
Giving to the poor, says if you give to the poor, whether the person uses it right or not, you've at least done your part,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, not being happy when good things happen to other people can impact your ability to be blessed. So being a hater can block your blessing. We looked at the fact that loving your neighbor means loving your neighbor the way you love yourself means wanting good things for your neighbor, but it means wanting the same good things that you want for yourself. So if you want riches, you want your neighbor to have riches.
Right.
If you want to have peace, then that means you want your neighbor to have peace. If you want fancy glasses, then you want your neighbor to have fancy glasses. So whatever it is, if you want a high-paying job, then you want your neighbor, your coworker, to have a high-paying job.
Right.
So that's loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So that was the last lesson. Any thoughts or questions from that? Okay. So now we're going to look at the study of Joseph. We're going to study the life of Joseph. Joseph, we'll start with looking at Joseph when he was at home. Genesis 37, 3 through 5. You have that, Andy?
I got it. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more.
Okay, so Joseph was favored by his father, and his brothers hated him because of it. So favor can cause jealousy, envy, and even hostility
Oh, I
towards
see.
you.
Okay. Because he had favor.
Right, because he had favor from his father. So he was favored from his father because he was the first child of Rachel, and he had Joseph when he was old. So because he favored him, he gave him a multicolored robe. He gave him a robe, and
The
it
father
showed
gave it to
the father
Joseph?
gave Joseph a robe. Yeah,
Okay.
Israel gave Joseph a robe because he was his favorite. So he
Well,
had
they really
a
hated
physical he had a physical display
Right.
of his favoritism. So they hated him. So these brothers, remember, these are the patriarchs of Israel, the tribes of Israel. And after that, Joseph had a dream. He had a dream that he would rule over his brothers and even his parents. Then his brothers hated him because of that. They stripped him of his robe and they threw him in a pit. And then they sold him into slavery to the Ishmaelites.
Now, is that the same Joseph who later on becomes the father of Jesus? Or not the father, but Mary's husband?
No, it's a different Joseph. Yeah, this is further up the line.
But time-wise, is this before or after?
This is before.
Oh, before, okay.
Yeah, this is before. So this is before the Israelites became slave to the Egyptians. So this is before they got into bondage in Egypt.
Okay.
So here Joseph was favored by Joseph. So the Bible doesn't necessarily say it was favor from God, but at this point he had favor from Joseph. Okay, so now we look at the next part of Joseph's life. Genesis 39, 1 through 6. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian, who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. So Potiphar was a high-ranking official in Pharaoh's army. The Lord was with Joseph, so that he prospered. So the Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered. And he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. So he prospered, but he was a slave. Okay. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. So Potiphar noticed that the Lord was upon Joseph, and that Joseph had the favor of God. So Joseph then gained the favor of Potiphar.
Okay.
So from the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except for the food he ate. So Potiphar put Joseph in charge, and then everything in his life started going good because of Joseph's favor. So initially Joseph had favor from his father. Now where's Joseph's favor from?
Potiphar.
So Potiphar, we could say, but we see that when the master saw that the Lord was with him and the Lord gave him success in everything he did.
Oh, it's still the Lord.
So now it was the Lord
The Lord,
was giving favor to Joseph. And why did Potiphar put Joseph in charge?
Because he's seen that he had favor.
Yeah. He saw that he had the favor of the Lord on him. So Potiphar increased in favor because he recognized the difference between Joseph and the other slaves. So he recognized the difference with Joseph, and he acted on it appropriately. So that's what we talked about wisdom. He recognized the difference, and he responded correctly to that difference. So notice how Potiphar's reaction to favor differed from Joseph's brothers' reactions to favor. So he blessed the favor, and now he was blessed because of it. As we saw Abraham, God said, I'll bless those who bless you. Joseph was now the top slave. So Potiphar increased his own favor because Joseph had favor. Potiphar got favor from God because Joseph had favor. So you can get favor from God because someone else has favor. So you want to make a point to identify the source of your favor. So is your favor because of your actions, or is your favor because of someone else's actions? So Joseph's favor was from God, but Potiphar's favor was because of Joseph. It was from God, but it was because of Joseph, because he blessed Joseph's. So Potiphar promoted Joseph because Joseph was favored, and he was blessed because of it. So you want to recognize, honor, and bless the source of your favor. And we also saw this in the story of Jacob. So in Genesis 30:27, Jacob with Laban. So Jacob was running Laban's affairs. And in 30:27 it says, "But Laban said to him, If now it pleases you, stay with me. I have divined that the Lord has blessed me on your account." So Laban recognized that the favor of the Lord was on him because of Jacob. So he recognized that Jacob's favor was bringing favor to him. So that wicked person that you see prospering, it may be because someone in their family is favored.
That makes sense now.
Joseph had direct favor from God. Potiphar had residual favor from God. He shared in Joseph's favor. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, I might be jumping ahead, but like the workplace, like say if there's a Christian that has favor over their life, and their boss uses them and gives them more responsibility because they see that.
Right.
So favor could come over them too? Or
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good point.
So let's see what happened next. So after this, Joseph was granted access to everything in the household. But then Potiphar's wife came on to Joseph. She tried to seduce him into sleeping with her. And Joseph refused.
Right.
Joseph said, "Hey, Potiphar's put me in charge of everything in his house, except for you."
Right.
He said, "So why would I violate his trust?" And so one day she came and tried to entrap him, and she grabbed a hold of him and grabbed his robe, and he wanted to get away so bad he just left his robe. He ran and just ran off his robe. He ran away butt naked.
Out of his robe.
Out of her room, yeah. And he ran out of his robe to get away.
Smart man.
He just said, "Okay, I'm going to run out." And then Potiphar's wife said, "Hey," called the other people in the house and said, "Hey, I've got his robe, but he came in here and he tried to rape me."
Right. Lied about him.
Oh,
She lied about him.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Potiphar was upset, and they put Joseph in jail.
Also prison.
So they put him in jail. So Potiphar said, "Send that guy to jail because he tried to mess with my wife." And so,
Where did you read all that?
where did I read all of it?
Yeah.
It's in
That's
the
the book of Genesis?
That's Genesis chapter 39.
Okay.
It's chapter 39. So you can read up on that. Yeah, so that's what happened, all of us. So we're going to go through the whole story of Joseph. So Genesis 39, and so we see that Joseph passed the test of purity. He passed the test of purity. So he was put to a test, and he passed it. So now we'll look at Psalms 105, 17 through 19. You have that, Maria?
And he sent a man before them, Joseph, sold as a slave. They bruised his feet with shackles. His neck was put in irons. Till what he foretold came to pass. Till the word of the Lord proved him true.
So the word of the Lord proved him true. So my version says, so the word of the Lord tested them. So we saw earlier that whenever someone gets their destiny told to them, then oftentimes they go into the test. They have to go into the wilderness. Once they get told, hey, this is something great you're going to get, then it doesn't just go, they don't go straight there. They go into a wilderness.
You get the blessing and the test.
You get the you get the blessing, but you get the promise, and then you get the test. And so we'll look at, does the test mean that you don't have the blessing now? So you get the test after you get the promise. So we saw David. It's like, hey, you're going to be king. Next thing you know, he's running in the wilderness, fleeing for his life. Children of Israel, hey, you're going to go to the promised land. Next thing you know, they're in the wilderness. Jesus, you're anointed, you're my son. This is my only son. He goes in the wilderness to be tested. So we see the pattern. So Joseph was tested. He was tested with the test of purity. And he passed the test of purity. So you'll be tested when you have favor. So Joseph had to face the test of purity, the test of pleasure. He was tempted to obtain something pleasurable that he didn't have the right to enjoy. He was given access to something he didn't deserve, and he refused to partake in it. So he passed the test of purity by refusing to sleep with Potiphar's wife. So I think we've all seen the results sometimes when a pastor who has favor is given a test of purity and they don't pass it. They can lose. Yeah, it can be disastrous. So now we look at, or any thoughts?
So you're saying each time a person is tested, they must pass the purity to have favor. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, so you have to pass the test to get favor, and then once you get it, you continually have to pass the test to keep favor.
Keep it. But it's different types of temptation instead of the same one.
Right. It may be a different test.
Yeah.
So once you conquer this test, I mean, they're generally, lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and pride of life.
Right.
But yeah, once you are given favor, you'll be tested in order to keep it. So he was
How do you know
given
when you're
favor.
being tested, though?
How do you know when you're being tested? When you're still breathing.
Right?
No.
You're not dead.
No. Well, you may not know. You just have to
Do what's right.
behave. Yeah, do what's right. You may not know if it's a test or because a test of temptation is offering you something you want. So you may not know it when you see something offered that you want. You may not automatically go, oh, this is a test. You may go, oh, this is a blessing.
Right.
It's a blessing from God. He's like, I was looking at her. I was looking at Potiphar's wife. Well, now she's coming to me. It's a blessing. So if you don't have the right, if there's something, obvious in the Bible, or not too good to be true, but if there's something in the Bible that says you should not sleep with another man's wife, then you're pretty sure it's not a blessing. So if it contradicts God's word, then it's not from God.
Then it's not right. Then it's a blessing.
Or even the word as in, God, something that God told you directly, if it contradicts that, then it's not of God in general.
I think
Self-God, it's usually a test.
it's so important to keep our thoughts in check, right? Because I think if you're playing with thoughts that you're not supposed to have, and then temptation comes, is you just go like, oh yeah, well this has been on my mind. It's easier to fall into it. But when you keep your thoughts in check and say a temptation comes, but in your mind it's very defined. This is not of God. This is a sin that it's. I mean, either way, it's probably a struggle. But I think it just made me think about like the temptation for anything, temptation to be angry or rude or anything, any kind of that. It's so important to keep our thoughts in check.
Right. So whenever you're imagining something or visualizing something that's wrong, then it's easier for the enemy to present that to you.
Because it seems natural to you.
Because it's like, you've been running, you've been through it 50 times in your head already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier for you to go ahead and just do it.
Right.
You're like, oh, this is just what I was dreaming
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
My dreams come true. And so it's harder. Yeah. So if you put yourself in check when you fantasize, then it helps you not to turn to it. Okay. So you have Genesis 39:20-23.
Yeah, I got it.
So we look at Joseph now got sent to jail.
Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success wherever he did.
Right.
Even in prison, wow.
So even in prison. So he lost his worldly success,
Yeah.
but he didn't lose the favor of God.
Right.
So he lost his initial blessing, but he didn't lose the favor of God.
Right. I always see this as he started a jail ministry.
Yep.
Yeah. Could be. So being in jail may not match our definition of what it means to be highly favored.
Yeah.
And yet it could happen, right?
Right. And yet it is here.
It is. It happened.
And being a slave may not match our definition of being highly favored. You know, so if tomorrow something happened, I got put in jail, and then Eric says, "Hey, Maria, how's Michael?" And you say, "Oh, he's favored.
He's his favorite in orange.
He's favored. He's in jail." And you're like, "Wait, what? Did he go to jail, or is he favored?"
Yeah, you look outside,
Or if we find out, it's like, hey,
much depends where he's at.
he's like, "Hey, some people captured him, and he's a slave now."
Yeah.
Would your response be, "Oh yeah, he's favored now"?
So favored. So
It
favored.
is.
Is there doing Bible teaching or what you doing there?
Yeah.
I think we had talked about this, how favored doesn't just automatically take you away from not struggling and not suffering. And when I think about Joseph, and having all his brothers against him, that must have been hard. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
favored, but
All
he
brothers were
had
favored.
struggle. And then
Right.
so us, we can have struggle and have hard times and still have favor over our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely. So the favor of God was on him, even though he was not prospering.
Interesting.
So that tells us that prosperity isn't the distinguishing trait of favor. So although many sermons you'll hear, it wants to tie prosperity with favor. Prosperity is the outcome of favor. And if you don't have prosperity, then your faith isn't strong enough, and your favor, it's because prosperity is the result of favor, but that's not necessarily the case. So God favored Joseph in unfavorable moments. So Joseph lost his prosperity, but what did he keep?
Purity.
Kept his purity,
All the integrity.
but also it said God was with Joseph.
Oh, God. Yeah. He was God. Yeah.
So verse 21 says, "But the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him." So being with God, or having God with you, is a large part of the favor of God.
Yeah.
So the favor of God is the presence of God. So God was with everyone who was favored. The presence of God was with Moses. The presence of God was with Abraham. So if you have prosperity without the presence of God, then you don't have the favor of God. So you may have the favor of man. You may even receive blessings. You can have favor of man without having the presence of God. So you can have blessings without having the favor of God. The favor of God comes with his presence. The presence of God is the defining characteristic of the favor of God. So God being with you, whether in good times or bad times, that is the favor of God.
Just the mere fact that he's with you, regardless of whether it's
Right.
right a good time or a bad time, he's with you. That in and of itself, you're good.
Right.
That's a favor.
And so we see that other people notice and can see the favor on you. Others can see God's favor on you and will keep you around because of it. They may keep you around because of it. So they can see the presence of the Lord on you. So Genesis 39:3 says that Potiphar put Joseph in charge because he noticed the Lord was upon Joseph. So Potiphar not just noticed Joseph with favor, Potiphar noticed the presence of God on Joseph. So he put him in charge. Genesis 39:23 says the chief jailer put Joseph in charge because he noticed the Lord was with Joseph.
Yeah.
I wonder how he noticed it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the jailer said he noticed that everything he did prospered.
Prospered, right.
Yeah. So I guess he assumed that it was a favor from the Lord.
Right.
So non-Christians can see that the Lord is with you.
Everything you touch is good. Everything you do is good.
Right.
Right. Every deal that you do is good. A good deal. You're basically the Lord in your favor. It's in your corner. Everything you do does well.
Right. So yeah. So it's not
Okay.
completely clear how they noticed it, but
Right.
non-Christians can. So if they notice the favor of God are on you, if they notice that the presence of God is on you, then they're going to assume you're godly. So if they do, the question is, are you representing God well? So now if others are assuming the presence of God is on you, are your actions in parallel with God being on you? So now you're a representative of God. So Joseph was sold into slavery. Joseph was wrongly accused, and now Joseph is in jail. So as we said, favor doesn't mean that you don't have trials. It means you receive favor during your trials. It means God is with you during your trials. Even though Joseph was faithful, he still suffered injustice.
He was sold in slavery. He was put in jail. What else happened to him?
He was wrongly accused. So even though Joseph passed the test of purity, he still suffered injustice. Just because you're doing everything right doesn't mean you won't suffer injustice. Just because you're favored doesn't mean that only good things will happen to you. What Joseph didn't lose was the presence of God. The presence of the Lord is why we should want to obtain favor. We saw that the trials built Joseph's faith. So Joseph's faith was strengthened during the trials. So God showed Joseph that no matter whatever his circumstances, whether it's good or bad, that his worldly success didn't matter. So God showed Joseph no matter the circumstances that he was going to use it for good.
That's good.
You know, you get sold into slavery, it's going to turn. It's like don't worry. It's going to turn out for good. You get thrown into jail, just wait. It's going to turn out good.
That's awesome. Sounds
So-
like there.
So Joseph now understood that God was with him in good times and in bad times. So now he had it strengthened his faith. It's like whether good things or bad times, God is with me, so I'm good. Let's see. So we see what happens next after this. While Joseph was in jail, he interpreted a dream for Pharaoh had threw his cupbearer into jail, and Pharaoh had also threw his baker into jail. So Pharaoh, the head of the whole nation, was in same jail. His cupbearer and baker were in the same jail as Joseph. And Joseph interpreted dreams for them. They said, hey, I have dreams. Joseph, tell me what these dreams are. And so the baker, the cupbearer, Joseph said, oh, that means, you're going to get restored and you're going to be back to your position with Pharaoh. And the baker, he says, oh, that dreams mean you're going to die. And both of them came true. So the cupbearer got restored. And then years later, Pharaoh had a dream. And he went across the land trying to get someone to interpret it. And the cupbearer said, hey, there was a guy when I was in jail. He interpreted my dream and the baker's dream. And yeah, I forgot about that. I was supposed to mention them to you. But yeah, he's there. So Pharaoh went and summoned Joseph.
In jail?
In jail. So he summoned him out of jail. And Joseph came and interpreted his dream. So he had a dream. He said there's going to be some skinny calves, and then there's going to be some fat calves. And Joseph interpreted the dream. He said that means there's going to be a time of plenty. There's going to be a plethora of food and everything for 7 years. But then there's going to be a famine across all of the lands. There's going to be a famine. He says, so what you need to do is when there's time of plenty, store it all up. And then when the famine comes, all the other nations will have to come to you. Then you could rule over all the nations. You could be the head of the whole land, all of Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
And the king, so he told the king how he could prosper during this whole scenario. So that's where we'll pick the story up. Genesis 41, 37 to 42. Is that you, Andy? Yes.
The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes and fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck.
Okay. So Pharaoh recognized the difference in Joseph.
Right.
And he reacted properly. So Joseph, in an hour, went from being a prisoner to being in the palace,
ruler,
to being
right,
second in command of the whole country.
Yeah.
Right. Almost like a king.
Yeah. So an hour of favor
Wow.
is greater than a year's worth of work. So Potiphar favor. So Joseph was now over Potiphar. So Potiphar is now under Joseph, and the whole country is under Joseph.
The entire land, yeah.
The entire land.
Wow.
So Joseph got a ring, a robe, and a chain. So the ring is a signing authority. So if someone goes and delivers, say, a message to someone, and it has a signet of the king on it, it says, okay, now taxes are going to be doubled. Or the king may decree, okay, now every second-born child will now have to be a slave to the king. And it's because the signet is on it, then that means the king ordered it. It's like, okay, now send it to the front line. We're going to flank to the left side and take over there. The king's signet is on it. So that means that the king sent it. So
Signet like a stamp.
it's like a stamp, yeah. So it's like the king's stamp is on it, so it's official and no one can debate it. So Joseph got the ring with the king's signet on it. So Joseph could make any laws, could make any decrees in the land
With that signet, right.
with that signet. And he got a robe of fine linen. So the robe was a garment of the priest. So now Joseph was priestly as well. So Joseph had religious authority.
He had everything.
And he got a golden chain. So these are worn by the judges and the prime ministers. So now Joseph had legislative authorities. So he could, make laws, change laws. So Joseph was over the executive, the religious, and the legislative branches of the government. So he was equal to Pharaoh, except for the throne. So the whole country was subject to Joseph. So he outranked any judge, any soldier, any priest, any religious person in the country.
I gotta get some water.
Okay. So Joseph also had a test of prosperity or authority. You have Luke 6:10-12.
Luke 16:10-12. Okay. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own?
Right. So Joseph was trustworthy when he handled the affairs of the house. So that qualified him to handle the affairs of the nation. So it's like if you're trustworthy with little, now you're worthy to be trusted. So if you pass the test of being trustworthy with little, then you can get the test of being trustworthy with a lot.
Yeah.
And it says, if you're trustworthy with someone else's goods, then you're worthy to get your own. So Joseph didn't misuse Potiphar's wealth, so now he was able to get his own. So if you're not faithful with the little God gives you, he won't give you more. So application, we could say, well, if you're not tithing at $50,000, why would God give you $50 million? Yeah. So how you handle, and you look at how you handle the resources of others. If you're not faithful with the resources of others, why would he give you your own? So it's like, do you misuse the resources at work? You know, your computer, your phone, the office supplies, your time. Do you work as if you're working unto God? If God can't trust you with the things of someone else, he won't give you the things of your own. So Joseph worked diligently for those under whom he had authority under. So even though when it seemed like it wouldn't benefit him, so it didn't seem like there was any benefit for him, but he worked diligently. In the jail, the jailer noticed how the things he worked turned out, so he was rewarded for it. You know, but he's in jail, so it didn't seem like it's going to do him any good to work hard. So he was trustworthy in the test to lead a house, so he was allowed to lead a nation. He was made second in command in the house before he was made second in command of the nation. So the question is, are you passing your test of prosperity? Are you faithful with the little that God has given you? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm having a couple of thoughts right now. Going back to what you said about how God will tell you your blessing, but you're going to have to go through some, like, he doesn't give it to you right away. And I'm making the connection with how some people say, or I have heard it, that the struggle you go through is to prepare you for what is to come. And if you don't go through that struggle, it's there to build character to handle what's next. And that's why it's so necessary to go through that struggle.
Right.
And I think that's a time where you're proving that, you know, you're faithful and you're in the little. It's like a time of preparation. I see it that way. The struggle is preparation.
Right. So it's not just to test your character. It can also be to change your character.
Yeah. To equip you, right?
To equip you, yeah. So you may not have been ready to handle what God promised you at the time. So you had to go through some things in order to be able to handle what God wants to ultimately give you. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really profound scripture here about you be trusted with very little, and be trusted with much. And you have to really be faithful to what you have. The little stuff you have before God can grant you that. For example, you have $50,000, you have to tithe with that, or you want to get to $50 million.
Right.
So you're going to be tested with temptation how to do that.
Yeah.
So that means you got to be trusted with your bills on time. That goes paying your rent on time. You got a car note on time, or whatever else you have to do. You know, to get to that $1 million check.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
favor to you.
Yeah, you're trusted if you you borrow something,
You have to pay it back.
are you paying it back?
Yeah.
You know, you take a loan, that's you owe to somebody. Are you paying it back first, or are you spending it on yourself 1st?
Mhm.
You know, it's like, oh, it's just a school loan, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's like, well, you owe
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
You good steward, you pay them back.
Yeah.
And tied. Yeah, one of the speakers at the leadership summit, it was actually the comedian. He was talking about. He was like, yeah, you guys, I'm giving to the poor. He said, I think it's good. It's healthy to to help other people, to give to the poor. He said, I'm not talking about tithing. He said, that's stealing. Because I'm talking about giving. I'm talking about giving. I'm talking about giving to the poor. Oh wow.
Really put into perspective, right?
Yeah.
You're like, that's just not giving it still.
I was like, oh. So that was okay. Let's see. So any thoughts so far on the lesson? No. Okay. All right. So we see that Joseph's robes symbolize the story of Joseph and symbolize what he went through. Joseph got a robe of many colors from his father, symbolizing that he was the favorite child. When his brothers took the robe from him and threw him in the pit, his season of favor in the household was over. Potiphar gave Joseph a robe when he had authority in his household. When Potiphar's wife took his robe off, symbolized that his season of authority in the household was over. Finally, Pharaoh gave Joseph a robe of fine Egyptian linen, symbolizing the ultimate authority over the whole nation. So each robe symbolized greater and greater authority. So we look forward to the day when we receive our white robes, when we go to heaven, symbolizing our authority and ruling with Jesus. We saw that we have to pass tests to receive and keep God's favor. We get tested to get God's favor, and then we get tested to keep God's favor. Joseph passed the test of purity with Potiphar's wife, and he passed the test of prosperity with handling the affairs of others. You have to continually pass tests to keep your favor. True favor from God is not measured by your prosperity. True favor is measured by the presence of God in your life. So we see that whether he was in good circumstances or bad, whether he was in jail or in Potiphar's house, it said that the presence of God was with him. The presence of the Lord was with him. So the presence of the Lord is favor. So seeing that, then we can look at our list of the 10 things that bring you favor of God as also a list of 10 things that attract the presence of God. So we see that when we talked about righteousness, when we talked about seeking good for others, when we talked about knowing God's ways, when we talked about being humble, when we talked about fearing or revering God, when we talked about behaving with love and kindness. In 7, we talked about being married. 8, we talked about obtaining wisdom. We talked about doing good deeds for others, for example, giving to the poor. And lastly, today we look at being around those with favor, showing favor to those with favor, favoring God's anointed. So these are 10 things that help bring the presence of God into your life. So we saw that the Potiphar the chief jailer, and Pharaoh all noticed that the presence of the Lord was on Joseph. They all realized that they would receive God's favor by allowing Joseph to manage their affairs. They knew that they could share in Joseph's favor by showing him favor. If you have favor from God, those who show you favor will have the favor of God upon them. Potiphar received favor because of Joseph. Pharaoh was blessed because of Joseph. All the tribes of Israel were blessed because of Joseph. Being associated with Joseph was a way to gain favor from God. This is similar to grace, because the favor they received was unmerited. Grace is unmerited favor. The favor they received was unmerited. They didn't do anything to earn that favor, except for show favor to Joseph. It was because of the relationship they had with Joseph. So in the same way, we receive eternal life based on our relationship with Jesus. And others can receive favor from our actions. So the favor of God can be on your company, like you said, because you work there. The favor of God could be on your household because you live there. Your family could be blessed because of you. So sometimes people worry about that one person in their family who's doing bad things and bringing the whole family down.
That can also happen, right?
Yeah. But maybe we should be more focused on being that one person in the family who has the favor of God, bringing blessings to the entire family. So let's walk in the way, let's seek the truth and live the life.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Amen.
Amen.
I was thinking about when you mentioned how when he got the robe from his father, but then that season was over. It was taken away.
Right.
And I was clearly seeing, like, in my own life, like, in churches or in jobs, when it was my time to be there. And so I had God's favor upon me, and there was fruit, and my heart was in it, and I was there. And when God was calling me out of those seasons, it was fruitless. It was just like, I just knew it.
Right.
I couldn't flourish. I wasn't, like, thriving. And
Right.
I'm just thinking it's so important to pay attention to that, because you could be, like, miserable. And I'm just thinking, what if I stayed there, even though God called me out, but because I wanted to be comfortable, I stayed in certain places. Like, I would really have deprived myself of so much that God wanted to do. But
Yeah.
right, but
Yeah,
it's
your
so
favor,
true.
yeah, it can be tied to a location,
Mhm.
but it could be a season.
Right.
So if you're operating somewhere where there's favor, then your strong characteristics will be rewarded, and the areas where you're weak will be overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know you're in the place of favor.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yes.
the opposite.
Right. It's how you know you're in the wrong place, where it's like they only notice your weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like all the stuff you're bringing to the table positive, no one cares about. That's a good sign that you're not in the right place.
Yeah.
And God's not going to have you in a place where you're not supposed to be.
Well, he won't have you there, but you could choose to be there. You could go there.
But if He's calling you to a place, it's because that's where He wants you to be. And that's going to be a good place for you.
Right. He can be calling you, but he may be calling you here, but you may decide to go here. So you could be somewhere that God didn't call you.
Right. But if God called you to a place,
Oh, yeah.
it's all going to be a good place.
Right. It's going to be a good place. It's going to be where you're supposed to be.
Right.
So it may not be
Where you want to
pleasurable.
be, right?
It may not be where you want to be.
But
It
where
may,
you're supposed to be.
It may. I mean, there may
Yeah.
be some things you need to grow and learn
Right.
in a place. So just because, so that I guess that's, just being happy doesn't mean that you're where you're supposed to be.
Right.
It just so happiness isn't the only factor involved.